30 Things About Queen Elizabeth You Missed. Queen Elizabeth II is one of the most famous monarchs in the world, and the public and media have always been interested in her life. Over the course of her lengthy reign, Queen Elizabeth has witnessed everything. There are many things about Queen Elizabeth that you might not be aware of because the Queen was quite private. Here is a collection of some of the things about the Queen you probably missed. Number 1. She was a part of the army. At the age of 11, Princess Elizabeth and her sister, Princess Margaret, began their Girl Guide training. She also belonged to a group called the Sea Rangers, which taught girls how to sail and other water-based skills. She prepared for military service by participating in the Girl Guides and Sea Rangers. Princess Elizabeth became the first female member of the royal family to enlist in the armed services on a full-time basis when she joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, ATS, in 1945. During World War II, she served. While in the ATS, the princess gained knowledge about how to operate and maintain automobiles. She was a truck driver and a mechanic. Number 2. She was not technically in line to take the throne. The longest-serving British monarch was not meant to become queen. In 1936, Queen Elizabeth's uncle, King Edward VIII, took the throne but was never crowned and ruled for less than a year. He controversially chose to marry Wallis Simpson, an American who had been divorced. This decision led him to abdicate, altering Elizabeth's life dramatically. With King George VI ascending the throne, Elizabeth became the next in line, and her life was thrust into the public eye. Number 3. She never went to school. Princess Elizabeth never attended school, but that didn't mean she lacked in education. Instead, she and her sister Margaret were homeschooled, which was typical for royals at the time. Elizabeth studied constitutional history under Henry Martin, the vice provost of Eton College, which prepared her for her future role as queen. The Archbishop of Canterbury taught her about religion, and she became fluent in French, a skill that proved very useful during her reign. Additionally, she studied art and music and was an accomplished swimmer. Number 4. Her tiara snapped on her wedding day. Just hours before her wedding, the diamond tiara that Princess Elizabeth was meant to wear broke in half while being attached to her veil. Given that the wedding was going to be broadcast worldwide, this was a major issue. The tiara, known as the fringe tiara, was the Queen's something borrowed from her mother, the Queen Mother. When the tiara broke, reports say the Queen Mother reassured Elizabeth that they still had 2 hours and could use other tiaras. Fortunately, the royal jewelers at Garrett were on standby for emergencies, and they quickly took the damaged tiara to their workshop to repair it. It was returned to the princess just in time for her to wear it on her big day. Number 5. She met Prince Philip when she was 13. Elizabeth and Philip first met when the princess was just 8 years old at the wedding of Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark and Prince George, Duke of Kent, in 1934. They had a proper reunion 5 years later at the Royal Naval College in Dartmouth, where Elizabeth was 13 and Philip was 18. This was the first time she really remembered meeting him, and it was reportedly at this point that she fell in love with her future husband. They began writing letters to each other after that. In 1946, Philip asked King George VI for permission to marry Elizabeth. The king agreed but insisted that the engagement announcement be postponed until Elizabeth turned 21 the following April, as both he and the Queen were concerned that their daughter was too young. Interestingly, Elizabeth and Philip were third cousins through Queen Victoria, and Philip was born into royalty in Greece and Denmark. Number 6. She had more than one use for her handbag. The Queen was rarely seen without her handbag, which always had a portable hook attached. This might sound odd, but it served a purpose. The Queen used her handbag to communicate with her staff. If she placed it on the dinner table, it signaled that she wanted to wrap up the event in the next 5 minutes. Putting her bag on the floor indicated that she wasn't interested in the conversation and wanted her lady-in-waiting to come and help her out. However, if she hung the bag from the portable hook under the table, It meant everything was fine. Number 7. She is the longest reigning British monarch. Queen Elizabeth II was the longest-serving monarch in the United Kingdom and one of the longest reigning monarchs in history. She became queen following the death of her father, King George VI, in 1952. In June 1953, she was officially crowned as the Queen of the UK and as Queen Regnant of 7 Commonwealth countries at that time. Number 8. She owned all the swans in Britain. The Queen was the legal owner of all unmarked mute swans in Britain. This tradition dates back to 1186, when swans were considered valuable. During King Henry VIII's reign, it was illegal to steal swan eggs, and a practice called swan-upping was established to count the eggs and ensure none were taken. Each year, a team rows along the Thames to check on the swans' health. What began as a way to assert ownership has now turned into a census of the swan population. Number 9. She used coupons to buy her wedding dress. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Phillip wed in 1947, a time when the UK was still recovering from the war and experiencing rationing. Consequently, Elizabeth had to rely on ration coupons to buy the fabric for her dress. The government provided her with an additional 200 coupons. Princess Elizabeth looked stunning in the final gown, designed by Norman Hartnell. The dress was crafted from Chinese silk, featuring a high neckline and fitted bodice. It boasted a 13-foot train with a design inspired by Botticelli and was embellished with crystals and 10,000 seed pearls sourced from America. Number 10. She loved dogs. You must have seen the famous pictures of Queen Elizabeth with her corgis. It's widely known that the Queen had a great love for dogs. She got her first corgi, named Susan, as a birthday gift when she turned 18. Following Susan, the Queen owned at least 30 Pembroke Welsh corgis, all of which were descendants of Susan. The last of these, Willow, passed away in 2018. Additionally, the Queen also bred a mix of corgis and dachshunds, known as dorgis. Number 11. She had a stable of racehorses. Queen Elizabeth was a passionate horse rider. She started riding at just 3 years old. When she turned 4, her grandfather, King George V, gifted her a Shetland pony named Peggy. The Queen bred racehorses and owned many award-winning horses, with her horses winning over 1,600 races. She was well informed about the equestrian industry and served as a patron of the Thoroughbred Breeders Association. One of the largest horse shows globally, the Royal Windsor Horse Show, was frequently attended by the Queen. Number 12. She had 2 birthdays. The Queen celebrated her birthday twice each year. Her actual birthday was on 21 April, but she also had a second celebration in June. This arrangement was made because April was considered too chilly for public festivities. Number 13. She has broken many records. Queen Elizabeth was the longest-serving monarch in British history. Throughout her reign, she saw 12 British prime ministers and 7 popes from the Roman Catholic Church. She also holds the record as the longest-reigning female monarch globally. Her marriage to Prince Philip was the longest of any British monarch. Additionally, she has her image on the currency of 35 different countries, more than any other sovereign. Queen Elizabeth traveled more extensively than any other king or queen, visiting 116 countries unofficial. Number 14. She liked to drink. The Queen enjoys a glass of champagne every night. Her cousin, Margaret Rhodes, mentioned that she has a drink daily and follows the same routine. She starts with a gin and dubonnet on the rocks with a slice of lemon before lunch, has wine with her meal, and ends her day with a glass of champagne. Sounds delightful. Number 15. She was rich. Forbes estimates that the Queen's personal assets are worth around $500 million, making her quite wealthy. However, despite her status as Queen, she is not the richest person in the UK. Her net worth is significantly lower than that of the 2,674 billionaires listed by Forbes. A large portion of her wealth comes from private income generated by her numerous estates. Number 16. She has got 30 godchildren. Being a godparent is a significant privilege. The Queen has had at least 30 godchildren from the 1950s to today, although not all of their names have been made public. She took on the role of godparent even before her reign began. Many of her godchildren are linked to the royal family. Her first godchild was Guy Rupert Gerard Neville, born in 1945, the son of Lady Neville, who was a close friend of Elizabeth. Number 17. She survived assassination attempts. Being a royal and constantly in the spotlight isn't always positive. Queen Elizabeth has faced danger multiple times and has survived 3 assassination attempts. One such attempt occurred in 1970 during a tour of Australia, when an effort was made to kill her, as noted by former Detective Superintendent Cliff McHardy. The Queen and Prince Phillip were travelling by train from Sydney to Orange, and would-be assassins placed a log on the tracks to derail the train. Fortunately, the train hit the log while moving slowly, preventing any harm. On 13 June 1981, during the annual Trooping the Colour event in London, crowds gathered to see the Queen on horseback. As she passed by, 17-year-old Marcus Sargent fired 6 blank shots from a starting pistol. The Queen's horse was startled, but she managed to calm it down. Sargent was arrested and received a 5-year prison sentence. Just months after this incident, another assassination attempt took place while the Queen was visiting New Zealand in 1981. While she was at a museum in Dunedin, 17-year-old Christopher John Lewis fired a shot from a nearby building as she got out of her car. Although he missed, witnesses reported hearing a loud noise. Lewis was arrested 8 days later. Number 18. She was exempt from the usual documentation. The Queen doesn't need most of the important documents that others do. She can drive without a driving license and doesn't even require a passport, as these are all issued in her name. She has traveled to over 100 countries without one. Additionally, she is exempt from taxes, but she still chooses to pay income tax and capital gains tax voluntarily. Number 19. She had a few nicknames. The Queen's full name is Elizabeth Alexandra Mary. However, as a young girl, she struggled to pronounce her name, which came out as Lilibet, and the nickname stuck. Her close family called her Lilibet. Prince Harry and Meghan chose this name for their daughter. The Queen's husband affectionately referred to her as Cabbage, while her great-grandchild, Prince George, calls her Gan Gan. Number 20. She spoke fluent French. Queen Elizabeth is fluent in French. She began learning the language at a young age from her French and Belgian governesses. The Queen often speaks French during her visits to France and even delivered a speech in French at the state banquet in 2014. Surprising many, this skill has been beneficial for her when communicating with ambassadors and heads of state from French-speaking countries or while visiting French-speaking regions in Canada. Number 21. She sent her first email from a British Army base. On 26 March 1976, the Queen sent her first ever royal email while visiting the Ministry of Defence's Scientific Research Centre, the Royal Signals and Radar Establishment. Peter Kirstein, who was instrumental in bringing ARPANET to the UK, set up her email account with the username HME2, which stands for Her Majesty, Elizabeth A. All she had to do was press a few buttons to send her message. With this, Queen Elizabeth became the first royal to send an email. Number 22. She wears Essie ballet slippers nail polish. When you're the Queen, even your nail polish is a big deal. Since 1989, Queen Elizabeth has worn the same shade of nail polish. She loves Essie's iconic ballet slippers so much that it's the only color she will use. According to the brand's website, her hairdresser wrote to Essie Weingarten in 1989 to request a bottle of this classic pale pink shade. Number 23. She owned an apartment in NYC. The Queen owns an apartment in New York City. She has a $7.9 million pied-à-terre in Manhattan, which is a 3-bedroom flat located in the 50 United Nations Plaza, developed by Zeckendorf Development and designed by Lord Norman Foster, who was knighted by the Queen years ago. The apartment spans 3,000 square feet and includes 3.5 bathrooms, along with a 15-foot-long living and dining area. Number 24. She had a personal poet. The poet laureate has been part of the British royal staff since the 17th century. This is an honorary role appointed by the UK monarch. Duffy wrote poems for special royal occasions, including the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton and the Queen's 60th coronation anniversary. The appointed poet receives an annual salary and 720 bottles of sherry upon starting the role. Number 25. She was woken up every day with bagpipes. The Queen doesn't use an alarm clock like ordinary people. Instead, she is awakened each morning at 9 a.m. by a bagpiper who plays outside her window for 15 minutes. This piper is referred to as the piper to the sovereign. Interestingly, she can recognize if a different piper is playing instead of her usual one. Number 26. She was in Kenya when she received a message about her father's death. Princess Elizabeth became queen following the death of her father, King George VI, on 6 February 1952. At that time, she was in Kenya on a royal tour with her husband, Prince Phillip. The news reached her private secretary through a call from a local journalist, which was later confirmed by Prince Philip's aide after they heard it on the BBC World Service. Philip was the one who informed Elizabeth of her father's passing. Remarkably, she was one of the last to learn that she had ascended to the throne. Number 27. She doesn't risk getting blisters when she buys new shoes. The royal responsibilities of a queen often require her to be on her feet for hours. The queen is known to wear various styles of shoes from Anello and Divide, and she has a clever method to avoid getting blisters. She has a servant with the same shoe size who breaks in her shoes for her. It's essential that her shoes are comfortable right from the start, as she can't say, "I'm uncomfortable, I can't walk anymore," during official events. The servant who wears the shoes also uses cotton ankle socks and walks on carpet to help soften the leather. Number 28. She once found an intruder in her room. In 1982, a man named Michael Fagan broke into the Queen's bedroom. At the time, reports claimed that the Queen, maintaining her usual composure, asked him what he was doing there and kept him talking for 10 minutes while waiting for security. However, in later interviews, Fagan stated that she didn't chat with him at all. Instead, she ran past him and out of the room. Number 29. She sneaked out with her sister to celebrate the end of the war. When the war came to an end on 8 May 1945, Elizabeth and Margaret were allowed to join the crowds celebrating in the streets. The Queen remembers that evening as one of the most unforgettable moments of her life. She said, "I remember lines of unknown people linking arms and walking down Whitehall, all of us just swept along by a tide of happiness and relief," according to a post from the royal family on Instagram. Number 30. She has many titles. The Queen was not just known as the Queen of England. She held many other titles as well. Her official title is Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms and territories, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith. In Canada, she is also called Chief Hunter of the Order of the Buffalo Hunt. Additionally, she holds titles from various orders, including the Order of the Garter, the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, and the Imperial Order of the Crown in India, among others. So, did you learn anything new about this well-known British royal? How many of these facts did you already know? Let us know in the comments below.